Good evening, everybody. The Student Proving Grounds is back once again with the second semi-final. My name is Trajan, casting alongside Nymera tonight. And to kick us off, Alex, why don't you clue us in on what happened the last time we were on air?
So last time that this channel was on air, we had the first of two semi-finals for this Proving Ground event, which of course was Barrage versus Resolved, and well, it looks like Resolve were the students in that one, and they were schooled by Barrage 2-0. There were some moments where we thought that their mid-jungle was going to pop off, had some good moments between them, just wasn't enough to carry them across the finish line, even though they did seem like Resolve had pieced together some of the problems that they had during their regular, during their round robin. Wasn't enough that Barrage ended up being our first team into the finals.
Yeah, absolutely. Barrage looked very strong in that first round robin day. The extra prep they had seemed to come up big, and they absolutely earned that position through into the final, as you say. Now waiting for the winner of this match, London and Demise. And these are another pair of teams that went 2-1 on that round robin day. We had 3 teams with that record, so it's not like there's a clear favorite really on any side of the bracket left in.
Yeah, because there was a bit of a, an assumed dominance from Demise because they were the last team to drop a game. They were 2-0 right up until that very last game, which was London. And they came in and they smacked them with a huge level 1, a very dominant laning draft, and they ran away with that game. So now they're faced up against each other again. The head-to-head is in favor of this London team versus those Reapers. Have to see, again, whether they can draft something a bit more stable in the early game and not fall prey to that early preparation.
Yeah, London were kind of the no-prep wonders and just came out of the game, came out of the gate at 100 miles an hour in that game. Never let the game out of their hands, it must be said, despite the fact that they maybe would be expected to lack a bit of the cohesion that other teams have been able to build. They looked super clean finishing that game out. They had winning lanes, they had strong jungle, and they just kind of walked it in, and they made it look pretty easy. So if London, if you give them an inch, they will take your Nexus with it.
Absolutely, and I mean, I was always a fan of roller coasters growing up, so London were a bit more of the Rita Queen of Speed, the catapult, just right off the start line, and try not to slow down after a point. And actually, that kind of comes into a bit of what we've been talking about both these teams just in terms of our prep, in terms of, it seems like London, very strong laning, but their team fighting is where you can see their cohesion hasn't quite met. That's the area of the game which they might get exploited in. So if they are going to be that catapult launch coaster, they best get a really good early start before they start falling off in the late game, at least with how we've seen them play so far. And it seems like Demise been a bit of the opposite, right?
Yeah, they've had a bit of a better record there. In their win over Barrage, the team obviously in the grand finals right now, that game was very tight. It went late, it was slow-paced, a lot of very tight team fights around the objectives, the Dragons and the Barons, and Demise were able to just about eke it out, had a strong scaling comp and got the win there. So when push comes to shove, Demise can go the distance, so maybe they do want to look to drag this game against London out. They don't, as long as they can keep themselves under control early, maybe they can just kind of hit that mid and late game and start just out-rotating them, out-playing them in that later stage.
Absolutely. So that kind of covers our initial takes on these two teams, but we've only seen 3 games of them. I guess going to the next point that we kind of listed down for ourselves is talking about, okay, well, that one head-to-head between them was so focused on draft, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The power picks right now in this tournament in general, and just between these two teams especially, I think, are going to be such a big factor. Now, the bot lane pool has been kind of wide for a long time now, but now it's narrowing down a little bit in this specific matchup. Picks like the Varus, picks like Tristana, picks like Jinx, we're seeing them come up again and again, and you can see why. They are absolutely dominating when they're put in the right position.
They are, and I suppose looking at these two teams and their individual matchups, particularly Gregors and Teen have come in really hot, really strong. They're vying to be the best bot lane, or actually just the best player in this tournament so far. They've been lane dominant, they've been carrying, and they've also got shared champion pools. They do play that Varus, and if I was looking, and of course the Tristana too is one of Gregor's favoured champions. In fact, actually when he was playing in the promotion tournament for the UKLC, played that a couple of times and looked good individually on it. We are into draft though, talked about those bot lane power picks. We also think that support counter pick, particularly for Yanako, could be key in this series, because again, that bot lane dynamic has been so important for Demise.
Yeah, for sure. Last time these two teams matched up, that final R5 counterpick was given to Yanako. It was a Zillion that was locked in, and it didn't have the best time, to be honest. We know that Yanako has a wide, very somewhat off the wall at times pool, but we haven't really seen. I don't think we've seen everything that UNACO can bring to the table. We've seen the Blitzcrank already. We've seen the Zillion. I'm sure there's plenty more to offer,
sure.
and I'd be interested to see if they want to opt to maybe give UNACO another chance at the counter pick, or if they save it for someone like Smee for the weak side top.
And UNACO playing the Zillion has control over time. Turns out all of that time is just bad. It was a really awkward game. Kind of got out pressured in that CVT. So again, we're looking down towards that bot side and how this draft might enable one or the other of these two teams. Going into the bans which have already come through, a lot of tier listy things in terms of the two new junglers on the patch of Diana and Rumble. They have been so strong. And again, that Tristana, maybe that's the thing which Demise say, yeah, we're not giving that as a first pick. We don't want that in the TV2. Maybe they're more willing to give over something like a Varus, though, instead.
Yeah, that is wide open right now, but it's gonna be the Lilia locked in for Crisis, and this was the,
one of the picks.
You know, first blood at level 1 into the game's just over now, I'm afraid, pick for Crisis in one of those previous games. So that is a scary prospect to be sure. It's gonna be matched though, the top lane pick, or potentially the bot lane, I guess. This could be a fasting Senna Cho'Gath combo, or we could see Cho'Gath into that top lane, as I believe Jojo has shown us once already.
I believe so. And, well, one thing which has fallen through this draft is that UNACO has an account called, like, Farm Your Souls, who literally just plays the Senna and stuff like the Thresh too. I suppose we're going to go towards the more soul thing. By the way, Senna collects mist, not souls, so just calling that one inconsistency.
Called me out on that one off air before.
Wow, way to make me look bad. No, it's okay, don't worry about it. But what this Senna does now, it opens up so many different options, because the Senna Varus is something which Lamborghini and UNACO have both played before. The question is whether this is going to be something like the Cho'Gath bot instead, or whether this will be double poke, double ranged lane from Demise.
Yeah, last time the Senna came through, it was the raw Senna support and a Varus combo, but of course, Gregors and Nibble have brought back the Varus Bard, which I believe they used in their last matchup. That was what smashed the Jinx Zillion in that first game, so they've gone right back to the winning ways, and it is up to Demise to find the answer, as we were saying before. So what that answer is going to be, we're not quite sure yet, because there's not really that much attention paid towards the bot lane. There were no other bans here, just the Tristana and the Varus taken away, and as I said before, there are still a fair few options if it's not going to be the Senna.
Indeed. So now we're looking towards the second part of this draft. What's going to happen with these second round bans? Because the Senna's locked in, you no longer have this issue of, oh, we want to hold out for a counter pick in, particularly, like we're saying, UNACO's support champion pool. So there isn't a chance to really double ban that there. The question is, again, whether we're going to see something like, maybe London want to take away the Tom Kench if they think they are going to go towards Lamborghini on the Senna, just farming up instead, and then UNACO playing something more bruisery. But now they kind of have to look at this team composition and be like, alright, what's the priority now? We know Sanjay plays stuff like the Victor, plays a lot of mages, but there are only so many mages you can ban versus this player in the mid lane.
Yeah, for sure. The notable pick I think that's still open is the Orianna, which is actually was quite a common blind pick, and in general across the world of League of Legends, especially right now, is quite a strong considered blind pick in the mid lane. It's gone all the way through to round 2 so far, and now the Galio's been taken away. I mean, Renekton's technically a mid laner, sort of flexible, but
if you're LPL.
You know, that's a pick. Yeah, exactly, and who knows? Maybe the UK wants to try and catch up there, but it's. The Orianna, I think, is something that I'm waiting for to see if that's just going to be like the safe first pick maybe for Demise, just so they can get that nice mid matchup. It's more focused on the top side though, Admirodo with the Renekton and the Gnar taken away, and I think that's a good idea, because Admirodo for me is the only other player in the tournament who's really contesting both Teen and Gregors for best player so far.
And I think that Jojo and Admirodo are probably the two best tops between the ones that we've seen so far. Smee has been playing weak side and played weak side relatively well. Apart from the last game versus London, where Admirodo played that Gnar and tore his Shen a new one.
Took him down.
It's like, I get knocked down, but I don't get up again. Everything's going to keep me down. That wasn't how I remembered that song going, but, you know, it's just how it is now. We've revised history, talked about Zillion, and now we're just editing the past, just as how we please.
Yeah, exactly, and I'm watching this hover right now from Lamborghini. The Orianna did get banned away, so we're not going to see that safe blind there, and it is the Ezreal, so this is presumably the Ezreal Senna bot lane. Plenty of poke down there, not really that much like physical presence, not that much CC besides the Senna lock-in, so it's an interesting combo for sure.
It's kind of like if you were a general in antiquity and you were building your force and decided, you know what, I don't like spears, don't like legionaries, I'm going to build everyone as an archer. Which means that if they come close to you, you're running the other way. You're not sticking there. You don't really have anything to pin people in place while you fire this artillery, fire these longer range things into them. Now you've locked in a Camille, that gets even worse because that is long-range engage, massive follow-up, and if you have something like an Azir, which we'll see what's being locked in the mid lane, it just seems like a lot of target access which is able to reach that backline, and they want to keep it range.
Yeah, they really do not want to be dealing with Admodo. One of the few Camille players in this tournament so far, we're kind of noting who has the Camille and who doesn't. It's another power pick and it's been locked in there, and it's paired with the Sylas as the other mid laner there for Killy.
I think that's more than fine. You look at every ult available still, and that is not the metric you pick Sylas on. I think Sylas has a lot of different ways that they can be played. I think, for one, very good into side lanes when you have an AD top laner that also split pushes, because what that allows you to do is flip around the map at times and try and get moments where the enemy top laner has itemized versus someone like Camille into physical damage, and then has to face off against the Sylas. So I'm not sure what that last pick is, because it looks like it was a proxy. It was the Yumi locked in. Fairly sure that wasn't actually the pick, though, given that Spore got locked in. Anyway, Sylas does have some good abilities to kind of change up the lane assignment and make that Cho'Gath in particular sweat. But then you have 4 ults already locked in, and you're thinking, hang on, that's pretty nice. AP Ezreal, that's pretty fun. AP Hecarim, huge scaling on that. The Chomp from Cho'Gath, you get to keep that extra HP if you kill someone with it too. Lots of ways that this Sylas can work out. It was into a blind lane matchup, though, and I believe it was the Zoe locked into it.
Yes, so that's going to be a Zoe into Sylas. I mean, I personally am not really sure how that matchup is supposed to go down. I remember a time in ages past when Sylas was supposed to be weak in lane, but I don't know if that's even the case anymore. And Zoe, I know, is always like deceptively strong with the amount of ability and the extra actives that you're picking up and dipping in and out. So who are you really favoring just in the laning phase here with Samj and Killy?
The most important thing for me is that Zoe gets push early. And what we saw was Crisis versus Caramon in their first game in that group stage. Just tore them up apart, because they had 3 pushing lanes, got to go into the enemy jungle, get a level 1, which helped things. I'd imagine we're going to see a level 1 invade again onto the Raptors, because that's just what Lilia does. But I think that having at least one lane that can push, stop Sylas going to roam, and stop that just being free pressure and presence on the map from this Lilia, is very important from the side of Demise, which again, they were looking to kind of hold out and scale into that 20 to 25 minute mark in that last game. I think this is a better match, a better draft rather, to do it in this one though.
Sure. So it's going to be a little bit of a different dynamic, but the same end goal perhaps. And I'm going to be looking for Demise to see how they're going to deal with the repeated threat of the Lilia invade. Last time there was no wards, they were just hanging out on their red buff, they got ganked at level 1, and they died. And it was rough, real rough, and the game was just donezo from there, to be honest. So I want to see, are they going to dedicate vision down there? Are they going to swap it up? Are they going to invest more or less, just like completely give up that side of the map? They're just going to start on the blue side. I want to see how they deal with this. I want to see the adaptation. Because as you say, teams have not been together that long. They don't have that much time to get the cohesion and to get that kind of synergy down, and they're learning about the other teams as they go as well. So I want to see how Demise are going to bring that knowledge into this game.
Yeah, so, and following on that point, if we're talking about cohesion, ease of execution, and all things like that, all that jazz, is one factor I think that London's team has going for them, their gank setup is so much more telegraphed and so much more easy, right? It's very easy to just hook shot towards the Cho'Gath. Easy to go forward with the Abscond Abduct. Go forward with the Cosmic Binding too from the Bard, or even the Hail of Arrows is good from Varus just for that slow, particularly against the Ezreal center, which, you know, you catch that center, they die. I think that makes Crisis and team, and all the combos you have across this map, a lot easier to pull off than something like the Hecarim trying to get on top of this Sylas against the Zoe and stuff like that. I mean, although the bubble's a little bit different, but particularly in that bot lane, I think there aren't massive ways to really upset the Bard and the Varus as long as they have that vision and they've positioned their lane well. You're not really going to catch them out, I don't think.
Yeah, it's a tough task, absolutely. And to focus in on this bot lane just a little closer, the only time we've had Senna in the support for Yanako so far was paired up with a Varus, and they were allowed to just perma-shove that lane the whole time. It was brutal, to be honest. But when we were watching back and looking at the Zillion versus Bard matchup that these teams had last time, I was asking you, how good is Bard into these other like longer range matchups? And you told me he's actually very good in that scenario. So how do you feel Bard is going to be able to match up into Senna in terms of the support versus support matchup, getting themselves control over that lane?
Okay, into most of the range supports, Senna's a bit of an awkward one, because Senna's Q is so unfair to lane against. It actually depends a little bit what item they're going to go, because this, I mean, we have seen a bit of stuff like Frostfire Gauntlet Senna come up and being tankier, rather than going for just a very squishy...
Frozen Mallet.
Yeah, Grass Frozen Mallet. It's back, and I hate it. Thank you. The thing about Bard, particularly with the Varus, that if you land that Cosmic Binding, it just allows you to get that instant Q if this is going to be the... I'd imagine this would be a Lethality Varus, actually, looking at it. Because you look at the Zoe, the Ezreal, the Senna, lots of champions where if they take one arrow, that they're not really happy about proceedings. But particularly in this 2v2, if you land an ult, you land a Q, the ult's obviously later into the game. In the early lane, it's more about landing that Q. That is a fully charged arrow hitting someone, and that's the next phase of the lane losing for yourself.
Yeah, that's... You don't really come back from that one too easily. And Gregors is one of these players who, as we say, has been mean on this Varus, has been taking absolute names down there. I think we would probably still say that Gregors and Nibble on balance have been the most dominant bot lane in the tournament so far. Obviously, they won the last game versus Teen and Yanako as the only kind of players that could stand up to them, and they're always ahead. They're finding 2v2 kills. The CS advantage is always there. They've been so consistent, and this super team bot lane has really kind of stepped up and validated us calling them that. So I guess we can thank them for making our analysis good.
I think the thing, particularly for London, is that I was looking at Crisis and Killian. I had less experience casting them. You know, I had big games here and there, but like particularly Gregors and Nibble, because they have been so dominant in the student scene with their own teams, right? On Gregors for Cabbage Family and Nibble for Bristol Whipped. And I love the fact that these two are on almost like die-hard rival teams now. They're playing with each other in that bot lane. The fact that we didn't necessarily know about Crisis and Killy on the same degree, and they have stepped up and they have been factors and they have been like being a part of this dominating roster in terms of how they beat Demise in that last game at least. It gives a lot of pride to this team to think, actually, yeah, okay, we are the, you know, quote unquote super team, if you get what I mean, where we thought they might be the best individual players across their roles.
Yeah, and they are stepping up today, and let's see if they can turn this into a win over Demise here. Of course, it is the best of 3 series, so we're going to see a little bit more, get a little bit more data from these teams, and they'll be looking to take that one in as well. So we've talked about the bot lane in quite detail now. I want to go back up to this top side as well, because I want to talk more about Admirodo, because he's my favorite and I love him. So he's got, he's got to carry this game. He's got a stone cold carry. It's not even Gnar, who can be the weak side, can be the strong side. This is Camille. You're looking to make an impact here. And against Smee on the Cho'Gath, this is very immobile. It's potentially very punishing to ganks if you're not able to control your waves, which is something that Admirodo has been real good at.
Exactly. And you also have Cho'Gath's ultimate on, like a 6-second cooldown on your Q. So congrats, Admirodo. You just have the better champion. I think that Camille into Cho'Gath is not necessarily as one-sided as something like the Camille into Gnar. I think that the turnaround in melee range from Cho'Gath can be absurdly high damage if you go around for the auto attack reset on the E, your W, your Q. If you manage to hit all of those in a row and get yourself a grass proc or something like that, you can very much outtrade Camille early into the game, particularly if there's a wave there too. So it is going to be a little bit on how you're executing this tank versus carry matchup, because again, that's something which Smee failed to do on the Shen versus Gnar, which again, in the first couple of levels, you can outtraded no, that didn't really get helped by the level 1 in that last game. So we'll have to see if in a slightly more even game where you're not losing so much pressure early, whether that can happen in this similar-ish matchup in terms of that tank versus carry.
Yeah. I mean, if the 1v1, as you say, can go either way at different stages of the lane, and I'm watching to see where Keramon is going to be dedicating their time. The last time they had the Hecarim, they were perma ganking Hampots Darius as he was just shoving up without the vision, and Smee happy to absorb the pressure, and they were getting him back in the game off plays like that. So Admirodo is going to have to be aware of that, playing around with the vision, and we'll see if Crisis wants to be a factor up in that top lane as well, because they've had a very active, tournament so far, ganking every lane that you can imagine on the Lilia. They kept the pace very high last time. Let's see if they get the chance to do it again.
What
today.
Lanes can you imagine? I imagine a top lane gank. I imagine a mid lane. I imagine a bot lane gank. I've imagined 3 lanes. It's incredible.
You guys can't operate on the level that Nomera's operating on right now. This guy can see 3 lanes at once. That's why he's
I've hacked the spectator. I can zoom it out. Yep. The odd thing about that is that a lot of professional players actually go to like the 4x3 screen, because they don't like taking in too much information from the side of it, because it just extra peripheral vision removes their focus. I'm not nearly at that level. I have unlocked camera. That's what I do. I occasionally press an F key.
That reminds me of the CS players who are still playing on like 480p, because they've just always been playing on 480p since they started, and they're like nose away from the screen, pixels the size of their eyeballs, and they're just like, nah, and they're still hitting headshots from the half the map away. It's
well, have you ever
really
tried
terrifying.
changing mice? Have you ever had the misfortune of trying to change mouse and then go into ranked? It is the worst experience.
And it's
So
like,
I used
what
to
is
I used to use a rat, and then Mad Cats went out of business. So when mine broke, I'm like, ah, this is awful. And then I have something which is no longer made anymore, and that broke, and I'm like, lovely, cool. So now I've had to change mice like 2 or 3 times, and I've hated it each and every time.
And that is why
Sadly.
diamond yet. So that's going to be, we'll see that on Nightmare's Twitter, I'm sure, before the season is out. But we are going to get onto the Rift right now with London versus Demise. This is game 1 of the series, the semi-final, to see who is going to face up against Barrage in the finals of the Student Proving Grounds here.
Could have fooled me. It could have been CJ versus Nightmare's league rank. Maybe that's the series we've got here. We have the Lilia stood on the bot side of the map. I think that's the odd thing for me right now, because last time, of course, Crisis went towards the enemy Raptors, of course, with the Hecarim. You also clear them quickly at level 1, but you'd rather start on that buff. Looks like this time, though, Crisis not going to go for that early invade and says, right, okay, going to put the ward down, going to switch over to the sweeper, not going to pressure anything too much at level 1 like we did last time.
Yeah, and there is the adaptation. You've got a ward in top side, ward in bot side, and even a ward in the bot lane brush, just to cover every angle you could really think of. So they are not going to get caught out the same way here. They're going to keep it nice and simple. So ward picked up by Nibble's going to be happy for the gold there, but we're going to get nice normal bot lane starts for both junglers.
Oh, we've had some interesting tech come out of the AD carries. It's a return to teleport AD carries. That is something I saw a little bit from the MSI pros playing solo queue just today and the other day. But what this means is that you do have the ability to take a hard poke trade, which, again, both these lanes really, really do, and that's one of the reasons that that ward was in bot side from Demise. They don't want to give this Bard and Varus the level 1 skill shots, which they're so strong at. And Crisis is going to start on the bot side of the map as they return to lane.
Yeah, and looking at these keystones right now, Yanako does have the Glacial, so we don't see a Grasp. We're potentially not going to be seeing the Frostfire Gauntlet here today. Some sighs of relief, I imagine, from some people in the audience. But that's not stopping the aggressive positioning coming through, and the trade is strong, but Yanako, I'm trying to work out the total health difference between the two. It's about even, I think.
Yeah, so Lamborghini had the wave between him and his targets. That means he couldn't hit the Mystic shots. And you're against the Halo Blades. Don't walk him into auto-attack range of that. It's a little bit sad. They do, however, trade their HP and use to get an XP lead, and they use it to land a bind.
Yeah, that is a strong level 2 aggressive arcane shift forward from Lamborghini Yanako, giving us a little taste of what this lane is going to be like, I think. Gregors and Nibble happy to just throw their hands up like, okay guys, relax, it's level 2.
Yeah, so this is kind of like the bot lane version of actually Aragon did a video on this, so one of our UK players, in terms of like, how do you trade your HP as a resource to get the lane and the XP for a better state for yourself? What happens there, Yanako does briefly take a 1v2 versus the Bard and the Varus, but uses that to again just get them away from the experience and use that to get the early level 2 and trade that HP back.
And speaking of trades, this mid lane's getting pretty feisty right now. Killy going aggressive onto Samjay, not landing the abduct though, maybe missing out on a smidge of damage. But once again, both these characters have plenty of healing in their own kits, though Samjay has the corrupting potion, so maybe a little bit more extra trading power for the Zoe today.
Okay, so what I was saying is that, okay, well, Zoe probably gets early prio over Killy's Silas. That's not been the case in this one so far. It has led to the top scuttle being taken by Crisis, with the bot lane prio edging towards Demise though. Looks like Caramon will trade that up and they'll be even on that full clear, which means that we have an early even game, which is what Demise wanted in that first game. And Samjay was saying to me that actually he's very confident that this team would just win post 20-25 minutes, and just in terms of their team fighting capacity, they think they're that much better than the other teams in this tournament so far.
Yeah, I mean, the evidence does point to that, but I must say that Samjay, once again, getting somewhat shoved around in this lane. It's the same story that we saw on his Xerath game versus Otter, but that did not stop them winning the game at all. He came back huge when the mid-game struck, and I imagine we'll be waiting to see the same story right here, as they've got a little bit of an inside track onto this river fight. Caramon ghosting in, knocks Killy against the wall. Silas with the re-engage, getting a lot of damage, and Crisis slicing off the heads with those blooming blows for first blood, and the rest of Demise are trying to chase this deer down, but there's the root from Yanako. That's going to do it. Caramon picks up, and Killy sticks around on 2 little HP. It's picked up by Lamborghini. They've got the TP back to crash the wave. This has gone very good for for Demise.
The fact that that could have gone so much worse for London is scary for them, because what happened was Sam J uses their momentary advantage and pressure to go out of lane, off of vision, set up for a bubble, which does land. The Paddle Star didn't. That's where I was thinking, oh wait, he can get the Kingslay. He's not just going to get one shot. And he does turn around for a kill. Costs Crisis the flash though. And that does mean that eventually the mid-jungle 2v2 of London does go down. And then the Scuttle goes down after it, meaning that Caramon is very much in the game now.
Yeah, absolutely. We could see the bot prior playing into that one. And that's going to help out this Ezreal and the Senna. No small amount right now, both saving the TP as well for both sides, so no one really forced to use that at this stage. And Lamborghini hasn't even gone for the back yet, Greg, as we can see with the tier, so there's no extra power coming through from items just yet. Perhaps Lamborghini's going to get a bit more force on his back.
Maybe you will, but if there is a... Well, I gotta stop. Spell Thief on the flash though. Oh, I love Zoe, right?
Love's a strong word.
That it is. It's also completely the opposite of what I feel. It's crazy, right? I mean, both AD carries still have that teleport in terms of, you know, talking about the item spikes for those two. So if there is a particularly bad item disadvantage for one of these AD carries, just imagine that someone is going to be spent to keep themselves up in parity for that. It hasn't really led to a CS advantage, though, for this bot lane, although that is with the roam included for the Demise bot lane.
Yeah, they've been farming and they've been roaming, they've been getting kills, they've been doing it all so far, and we can see them still pushing in once again. It's a different story from last time, and it feels like the difference maker has been Yanako Senna. They were taking the aggressive trades, roaming and getting kills. They just look so much more powerful on the signature pick
that they have. So, speaking of going back for items and trying to build up an item disparity, Sheen for Ezreal early has been one of those power spikes which the champion has just always had. Way back the early seasons of League, it was still the same. So Gregors pushes in that wave. They're going to use that to roam up, probably put down a ward. Lilia coming onto the bottom side of the map. Hecarim is there too. Maybe we'll see something happening towards that bot side, but without level 6's hit from either of these junglers, waiting just a little bit long for that. Now, actually, Caramon, Speak of the Devil, will get it after this camp, and that'll be before Crisis' Lilia.
Lilia starting up the red buff now. Just a little bit, yeah, but it is going to be a small lead here. Plenty of vision down for Gregors and Nibble. They're going to see this play coming if it does, but there's a Blast Cone, there's ult, no Ghost just yet. It's going to be a tight one, and they're coming through the lane, in fact, right now. Caramon coming through, ult straight in with the Onslaught of Shadows onto Nibble, and the damage is massive. The root comes through. The Arcane, I don't know, magical journey, I should say. Scoops Caramon away, but it's not enough to keep the bot alive.
So, why does that happen? It's because of the kill XP that was gained earlier from Caramon and the fact that Crisis died and was therefore just a few seconds behind Caramon to that play because they were both thinking the same thing in their jungle pathing. Caramon, very decisive alongside that Curse of the Black Mist from the Senna for the extra move speed, and of course the well, not invisibility, but camouflage-ness. They didn't see the Hecarim coming until it was far too late. Nibble gets ulted and goes down.
Yeah, and this is a bit of a departure from maybe what we expected. Demise being half a step forward more than once now, and they're the ones kind of upping the ante in this game, and their plays are working out beautifully for them. That's been so much action mid and bot lane, and if we take a rise up to top lane, Smee is doing really well up there.
Exactly, got the Bramble Vest. They are being frozen on right now, but once the Bramble comes in, you don't tend to lose out on those trades nearly as hard as you would before that. Admirodo is going to slow push back out. Vision, though, is littered across the place for Demise. It's not like Smee's going to lose any of this farm or have to back off or be respectful even. He's going to get full access to this wave.
Exactly. Great learning has been shown by Demise so far in this game in terms of their vision play. There is now vision everywhere at all times. Never again will they be caught out by London, it seems.
This is what happened. They got themselves like esports certified. They put down the walls and like, this was on the test. And Demise will, of course, lose the dragon for their top lane focus. No, that's a played mid lane.
Yeah, they might be losing their mid laner, but the flash was still there, though. Zoe Pocket's just overflowing with flashes at all times and is going to get away with a Prowler's Claw as an option as well. So the dragon still picked up by London, as you say, and the Herald not quite done, but Caramon's not going to be contested, it seems.
Love how Phil on the Observer just saw the Zoe charging up a kill. I was like, oh, hang on, that's actually quite a low health HP mid laner. Might be a kill there, and actually, if that skill shot would have landed, would have seen what would happen. Prowler's Claw is an item to pick up on Zoe. It just gives you the extra damage amp, at least. Might need some damage reduction here on the top side for Admirodo, though, as Caramon just takes a little bit of a flyby. Does have the Herald, isn't dropping it right now, though.
Comes in on the ward for Admiral, happy to give up the space right there. And I believe they did gift over the feast stack to Smeeze. That's a permanent feast stack, doesn't count towards your 6 minion stack. So optimal Cho'Gath play right here from Demise. You love to see it.
You know what used to be a really interesting thing about the... Oh, okay, I'll have to wait because mid lane might be in trouble. Not going to be a kill, though. It's a big old slap with the paddle. But yeah, so if Cho'Gath ate Annie's Tibbers, it would actually count as a permanent stack as well, and it would still have the increased damage amount. That was a little bit of a balance concern. I was like, wait, does that mean Cho'Gath just wins if Annie's in the game?
It's just infinite stacking forever and ever on these Tibbers, but we see the wave now bouncing back in bot lane, and here comes a recall from Lamborghini. It's been a little quieter back there since that early aggression, building towards that Essence Reaver, and neither of these bot laners seems to be getting a significant advantage anymore.
And I think that tells the testament of both these lanes, right? The fact that Lamborghini and Arco managed to get that early presence down and make themselves known, but they haven't managed to force Gragas and Nibble off of that much CS. They've been farming very well. They've been trying to make their own plays. Yes, there was that one death on Nibble, but it's not really been a capitulation. The bot lanes have been going toe-to-toe so far. Next thing to track, though, is, of course, how they do in these skirmishes and teamfights. How are they going to go beyond this laning phase?
Yeah, absolutely. And someone else I'm tracking to be the kind of instigator for London is Crisis. Was such a strong force for them in the last game. Looks like they're maybe looking for a play up in top lane, as Demise will not find anything bot lane. Smee is way out of bounds right now. The sleep comes in and the burst is huge. Crisis picks it up. I asked for a play and he gives me one.
Oh no! Their esports certified top lane vision has failed them. Truly, they'll need to go to another way to try and so protect their top lane.
$400 exam installment.
That's the one. Well, it's not quite $400, but it's 400 gold over thereabouts to Crisis and Admiral as they do take down that kill and the assist that goes alongside it. No dragon to be responded to on the other side of the map, so it is just that isolated kill.
Yeah, a nice little play for Crisis there, accelerating forward. Has the stopwatch already, so potential big plays in the team fights can come through if they so choose. But Killy as well, with the Onslaught of Shadows robbed from Keramon, so they're playmaking themselves. Keramon, though, of course, still with his Eye of the Herald. Gonna just drop it down in the mid lane, get some plate gold for Samjay.
That they will, so that will be 2 plates. I'm not sure they can follow forward for another one, but ooh, Sleep lands.
Not gonna go for it. Nothing crazy here. Demise gonna pump the brakes just a smidge.
Yeah, I'm just like, there are sword boots there. They're not Merc Treads, they're not cooldown boots. Actually, at this point, a maxed out paddle star, just a lot of damage.
Yeah, Karamon's pretty strong to follow it up. It was a close one. It could have been close.
Just this is my fear of playing against release, sorry, which is, in my opinion, the worst thing that ever happened to the league. I hated that. It made me very sad. But Kelly did, of course, have himself the Kingslayer available and the Hecarim Ultimate if they did go too far under turret. Speaking of that, he has it for another 30 seconds or so, maybe looking for a play somewhere else on the map, but there's a recall coming in from Yanako. It looks like Lamborghini. Following that, just going to back off.
Yeah, and look at that vision there. They have the ward currently being cleared up by Nibble, and have got a ward in every single bot brush on that bottom lane for Demise. They will not be caught out. Once again, Demise is investing into the vision game harder than I think I've ever seen any team at this level, to be honest. They are shoveling gold into, you know, ward coin right now.
It leads to things like that. Nowhere is safe to recall. There is truly nowhere you can be safe to go back home. Nibble going to, in fact, use the Alcove Gaming to get a tunnel way back under their tower to get that reset off. Gragas doesn't have the TP, but gets back with 30 seconds to spare for that dragon. It's not going to be a fully completed Mythic, whereas Lamborghini does have the fully completed first Legendary in that Essence Reaver, which is a strong spike.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of spikes, Admiral on that top side with the Triforce coming in. They've had a bit of a quiet one as well so far. Got an assist early on, and now they're looking to maybe roam down here. The Camille is a bit of a time bomb on these games, as we know. Looking for a potential play mid, not going to find it, but the threat is very real.
So there was still no flash. There's still no flash on Samjay for like another second or two. So now we have a very telling moment in this game. You don't have Silas with any stolen ult. It would have been great to look at this and say, hey, we have ourselves a stolen Hecarim ult. Whereas it is right now, Samjay looking to fish for those bubbles, does land one, and when you have that deeper vision, which they do have right now, it makes Zoe very, very dangerous to face in these situations.
Yeah, now we have a potential 5v5 on the cards here. This is what Demise wants. This is where they thrive and where London have tended to struggle. London have looked a little disjointed. Demise have been super clutch in these moments. And it looks like London, maybe they've thought of that and they go, wait, I don't think this is what we want, guys. We're not good at this.
Maybe not. And one of the really scary things about this, imagine that bubble lands and you have a Senna and an Ezreal ult coming on top of it, as well as the Paddle Star. Heck, even the Cho'Gath key can add towards that. Because London haven't really managed to win the Vision battle, they choose to let over this Mountain Dragon. They already had themselves the first Infernal Dragon that had spawned as well. It's a Cloud Rift. I think they're okay with this. This could have been a fight where they threw it. They said, okay, let's go find another fight, take a better angle at a better time.
Yeah, and they're gonna have the inside track onto this top side as well. Smee just now arriving, but Crisis is there, and Admorda has the tower low. Smee checking the brush, a great decision by him. Will avoid a potential gank, but the first turret gold secured by Admorda with plenty of backup from both teams. I imagine this will just be it up here.
Yeah, if there is anything more, remember there's not just a teleport discrepancy within mid laners, and yes, Silas is in the mid lane, Zoe was already there, that wouldn't have been the matter, it wouldn't have been a problem, rather. But Gragas has the teleport as well in the Varus. He can teleport back into the back end of the fight and then follow up with that arrow and that ult, which when you're going for poke, Varus are actually very high burst damage. You can actually have some decently impactful quick turnarounds from long range on that Varus. So he does go back to base. He gets himself a Duskblade. It's not going to be anything like the Prowler's Claw, which we have been seeing coming up on a couple of our more bursty AD carries, like Misfortune or, of course, the Varus itself. The Duskblade, though, gives the extra CDR, gives the extra on-hit damage when you use it that first time, and it has that item spike available to them.
Yeah, I think it was Lamborghini who pulled out the Prowler's Claw Varus in their game one. That was to much praise, and it was doing a lot of work dashing forward with the huge
Unless you're Tyler one. No praise from him on that item.
No, not a fan is T1, but unfortunately, you know, list of things he is a fan of in League is quite a short list. So we are going to get back here. We're just the 16-minute mark right now. London, they've actually pulled the gold back slightly in their favor. They were over a K down off the early plays that Demise was making, but they have been playing safe. They've been making wise decisions, not taking crazy fights. It's working out.
And they lost some place mid, but the first tower to go to the top laner. And Admorda now, with a significant amount of gold in their pocket, has the Tiamat alongside the Triforce, which was that old Season 10 and before Power Spike, where they could just get infinite wave control and enough fighting prowess to take down their solo laner as well. There's a Herald being now returned to that mid lane. First position Demise to take turret plates. London looking for the whole structure.
Yeah, Karamon looking around the side, but Killy has the ultimate stolen there. Karamon is deep into behind this tower, gets slowed up by the Lilting Lullaby, but plenty of disengage there for Demise. The tower does at least fall, though. Primary objective is achieved.
It is, and Karamon looks like fails the ult over the wall. Goes a bit of a face plant, and then is stuck in place. Luckily doesn't die, has gone for the Triforce themselves, and Karamon, no ult, no ghost, no hope.
Absolutely, Admorda will take that one all day. Samjay with the TP in and Smee in tow, but I think they are well behind the curve here. Killy with the ult still stolen, might have better luck with it, but I think they might opt out of this one. So a great punish there on Karamon, realizing that they could force even harder.
Good, so now you are against a poke composition with a Zoe who is behind in turrets. And that's kind of problematic. Zoe wants to be pushing up to the mid lane enemy turret. That's why those plates were taken in that mid lane, and Demise wanted to really get that pressure in the map, because Zoe's so good when you take that first turret and lose a lot of power when you lose it in the mid lane. Now playing around lack of structures in that top lane against the Varus, against the Silas, against everything else, Demise need to find another way back into this game. Might be around that next dragon.
Yeah, that is going to be a potential flashpoint for them to work around here, but as the game goes longer and longer, and London still accruing a little bit of an advantage, hold that thought though, because Smee looking to find something, doesn't find the rupture, and Admorda will slip away with Crisis in tow. That was probably a decent 2v2 for them regardless, but anyway, so for London versus Demise right now, in terms of the comps they build and how the game is going, if London can keep this pace pretty slow and just accruing a little bit of a lead, are they just going to outscale to the point where Demise can't take the team fights anymore?
On paper, I would say so. I think that you have the ability to steal stuff like the Hecarim ult, and Karamon's gone over the wall with the E!
Oh my goodness, there's the Cho'Gath ult right there, but it is Admorda on the kill feed here. Picks up that solo kill in the jungle off the TP. Bot lane turret, not long for this world.
Yeah, that's the Cho'Gath ult, the 6-second cooldown. That makes sense. That makes the Hecarim no longer a centaur. It lops off 2 of his legs, and he's walking back with with a lack of appendages attached. Karamon, just a man, a dead one at that. 1 and 2, Admorda with this gold lead is, well, making your pre-game prediction look pretty good. Your favorite, right?
Yeah, my favorite Admiral, and I love him, I believe was the quote, and I am sticking with it right now. Use both summoners for that one, but does have the ultimate still off cooldown right now. 2-0 and 1, 2 completed items. This is getting like a bit of a problem developing Demise here.
Yeah, and the Tiamat going into the Titanic Hydra instead of something like the Ravenous Hydra has always been really bursty for Camille, even when it was in that previous iteration of the Hydra items. Having that ability to reset and have the huge amount of damage coming through on that Q2 is something to be very, very much aware of. Now, Killy, very happy to slot into a side lane as well. Smee is a factor still, not as far down as the Shen was in the first game between these two teams back in that group stage, but really struggling to really make an impact outside of that, rather than just wave clearing.
Yeah, it seems like the team in general for Demise don't seem to really have that impetus that they had in the first 10 minutes or so, and that we've seen them have before. You know, when Samj was on the Xerath and Lamborghini on the Varus, they had a poke comp, yes, but they were making so many plays. Samj stepping up, landing Xerath stuns raw to start fights off. We're not seeing that anymore. London are always the ones controlling the pace here, and I'm worried for, you know, if this is how London is developing here, they've still got a full series to develop and a potential finals past that. They are looking scarier and scarier by the minute.
They are, and going back over to Demise and their woes within this game, a lot of their priority comes from, and a lot of their power rather, that's probably the word to use, comes from getting to a tower, pinning people underneath it, and just sieging. If you land a bubble, if you land a center route, you're going to have like 3 long range or even global in the case of Senna and Ezreal lots following through. And, Caramon, probably don't want to be there, buddy.
Oh my goodness, Admiral found him again, and there's the killing spree started off, but Smeed has the ultimate here as well, and Admiral going to stasis to try and avoid it. In comes Tilting Lullaby, it drowses him just in time for him to slip over the wall, but no such luck for Gregors, and he'll be taken down. Killy has TP'd over with a feast of his own, and there's Nibble with a stun on the backside if he can get close enough. Dashes in and munches up the Cho'Gath, slides away from the Zoe damage as well, and London still always fighting back.
Sick play from Admiral and Crisis to buy enough time for the Camille to hook shot away from the Chomp. Gregis doesn't have the same luck, does get caught up, does go down to that ultimate from the Void Monster in the top lane, but turns out Killy, well, if you can do something, he can do it better in this case. Gets the ultimate stack from the Cho'Gath ultimate too. A little bit more HP for the Silas now. Ain't that nice?
Ain't that nice? Little fresh bonus for Killy right there. And so there we see the power coming through from London. And that top side duo you mentioned, Crisis and Admiral, sick play from them. So impressive. And this is where most of their power is localized, right? 3-0 and 2 on Camille, 2-1 and 2 on Lilia. The rest of the supporting cast still showing up to fights and doing work. But the damage coming out of Lilia and Camille is just monstrous.
It's huge. And the thing is, Demise's team comp works better when they are allowed to sit and fish for skill shots. Again, fish for that center W, fish for the bubble, and Samj has been very deadly on the aiming of those, forced out a lot of different defensive abilities and forcing London away from the play. Hasn't led to a pick yet. It hasn't led to a pick, importantly, before an objective. And since London are now out of gold lead and have this Camille who can dive onto you from such a long way away, having just the decisiveness to follow up on those plays, Demise are not being able to slot into the play pattern they want.
Yeah, they're not being allowed to play their game, as has been their strength before, leaving, stringing out these games, playing how they want to play, and outskilling their opponents. London not giving them the chance right now. They've got the lead in gold, in towers, in dragons. They have it all in their hands, and we have seen how cleanly London can finish out games.
We have. Question is, where does it stop? Are they going to have to dive turrets? Smee, I don't think it's easy to dive on that Cho'Gath. You're probably not going to get through him. You're looking at the other areas of the map, and we've seen Caramon get caught out, and there's not exactly tanky on the side of this bottom half of the map for Demise. London, going to push in that top side, looking to push in mid lane at the same time. What you really need to do for inner turrets is to sync up your waves well, though, so you can immediately go from top, force the wave clear, go down to mid whilst the wave clearing top, to hit that tower, and then do the same from bot to, from mid to bot. You just kind of flow down that map. London haven't timed their waves at that point, really, though, so Demise just get a couple of minions lost to tower, but don't really lose that much structure damage.
Yeah, they have split the focus across the map, but not gotten too much done. But now the Baron is maybe the call here. We're seeing pings come out onto it. Lots of vision for London. They could look to turn to it if they so choose, but Demise are no slouches with the Hecarim, with the Cho'Gath. Their steal capacity is large.
It absolutely is. Question is, if you start walking up out of vision towards something like that Baron, how likely are you to die? Well, with the Swirl Seed and the Camille follow-up, and then also the Chains of Corruption and the Bard Ultimate, okay, there's quite a lot. In fact, it's quite a mouthful to say, in fact. You need to be very careful walking to Fog of War, because it's not just you that has the range in this game. The engage options from a long way away, even like half the screen, like we were saying, in terms of the Camille and the Bard Ultimate, is very dangerous when you're making that blind approach to Baron.
Yeah, we do see a lot of respect being paid by both teams, it must be said. London, yes, they were splitting the map, but they were giving up ground in the mid lane, giving plenty of space to the engage options for Demise, and we have entered a little bit of a quiet time right now for the last few minutes, where London, they're trying to push in, they can't really get much done. However, the Dragon coming up could put paid to that. 30 seconds on the timer, and we already see pings coming out and bodies coalescing in the river.
So this is the most important time in the game so far for a bubble to land. If that happens, you can force a fight in a 4v5 or just take the pick and run away. You need to wait for those skill shots to land, because London are not first the objective. Demise, though, haven't got that same vision that they had towards some of those earlier dragons, so they're on a slightly harder difficulty modifier to land those said skill shots, and they've also lost priority in the mid and bot lane.
Yeah, getting a little bit run around the map right here, tending back to the waves. We see Samjay channeling the recall right now. Yes, they have the TP though, as does the rest of everybody on the map, but they're just going to give it up. And London now, they're going to be the benefactors of the free objective here, as they've worked to get that power back in their favor, and they're reaping the rewards.
So Demise, they don't look for anything around that fight. And again, maybe that's due to the respect and bluntly fear of stuff like Nibble's Bard Ultimate and the Chains of Corruption coming from Fog of War, because again, Demise didn't have that vision control as apparently in their favor as some of those previous minutes played in this game so far. What that does mean, though, is a Cloud Soul point to London. Demise waiting again for the pressure to relent. It's not going to happen here, though, as a bot lane turret very quickly finished off by Camille, who's one of the fastest turret takes in the game.
Yep, those sharp legs chopping down the tower there. Smee just watching, waiting for the wave, and they're once again just holding each of their mid-bot and, top waves just nice and comfortable for Demise. At their towers, the ones that are still alive, that is, and I'm wondering when London just, say, I'm bored. Do we Dragon? Do we dive? Killy maybe wants to find something here.
Sleep.
As they've gone aggressive, and it's actually Demise who have found the pick onto Crisis right now. A bar that will keep them alive, though, and look at the return damage. London coalescing to save up their boy, and they will get the kills on the backside of it. Nibble saving the day, and the power comes through. London turned it on its head.
Well, get a gold medal, London, for going gold and using the stasises so well. You see the Lilia pop that Zhonya's, and then the Bardal hits everyone around them, so Lilia comes out of stasis first and gets to get the heck out of dodge. The outplay comes around, London take the Baron, they take the fight before that. We said, oh, maybe they're not coordinated enough to take team fights. Well, they proved us damn wrong in that one.
Yeah, could not be more wrong after that fight. London looking clean as a whistle right now. Now they've got the Baron. They can get these pushes in earnest now. They were having a little trouble with it before. I don't think they're going to have much trouble with it now.
Absolutely not, because what's the worst thing for or against a siege comp? Well, it's the Baron. If you have it, you get to push in and get priority for free, pin people under turret where you want them to be. And if the Baron's against you, you never get to do that. You have the Camille pushing in one side now, got the Silas going towards that bot lane. London will want to use this to break open the base finally, although with all 5 members available for Demise, might be a little bit harder to do that right now, particularly if they aren't, again, like we were saying, using those waves to flow from one side of the map to the other.
Yeah, there's still plenty of space for Demise to get their way back into this one if they can find the openings right now. I'm looking across the items for these teams, and there's a fair bit of completion for Demise as well. 2 items done on Cho'Gath, 2 on Lamborghini. Samjay as well has the Horizon Focus. They've got some power to bring to bear if they can find the way in, but before we saw Nibble completely stifle their attempt in that fight with the Bard, and it is not an easy job, to say the least.
No, it is not. Well, last time we saw an arrow land on screen, it did 500 damage straight out to Senna, who doesn't have that much base HP. You use a W on that, and if it's a fully charged one, look for most of Yanako's HP bar to just shred. We see Camille free hitting the top lane inner turret. That goes down, going on to the inhibitor turret now. Smee is looking to wave clear that. Don't have that much time left on the Baron buff, though, so I have to see if they can crack an inhibitor. They're looking for the top one.
Yeah, they're flowing between lanes right now, trying to find the weakness in the armor, and Smee is going to be identified as such. Drop down to below half, and they've got bot and top towers falling right now. 2 on bots had Keramon and Samjay, maybe looking to get something, anything to happen by going aggressive onto Killy, but they get pushed back, and the inhibitor has fallen. The towers are crumbling. It is absolute chaos for Demise. They don't know where to look.
They don't know where to look. They're looking at their feet, and all they see is quicksand. All their base belong to London. Killy does have that stolen Hecarim ultimate. It's at level 16. He has a cosmic drive. His Kingslayers are on ridiculously low cooldowns. London take their prize and get away with it.
That's exactly what I wanted to see, man. London pushing in, having trouble with pushes before, but not stepping out of bounds. Exactly. Then they get the Baron, and before you know it, all 3 inhibs fall at practically the same second. The switch was just flipped, and it was just over. 10k is the lead for London. 9 towers to 0. This is looking so good for them here.
It is in Demise. They see that their castles, or rather inhibitors, are built on pillars of salt and sand. They are not fit for purpose. There is no solid bedrock there. It has all fallen away from them. Again, they are a siege comp. They are a poke comp against the Baron buff. They were waiting for its time out, and it did not time out nearly early enough for their liking. They didn't manage to find an engage during that time to stifle the push from London either, but it just seems like they're getting bled out further and further.
Yeah, they're gonna have to make some sort of snap decision here. Keramon has the ultimate. Samjay, if they can find the bubble, they need to just try and force something, or it's gonna fall down before their very eyes. It comes the way, but it's Killy dropping the onslaught of shadows before anyone else, just for a little bit of zoning, I guess. That's a big cooldown off the table for them. But now Zoe has been caught in the drowsy themselves. The poetic justice comes up huge, and Smee falls straight after London, massacring Demise in their base. Admowodo, hypey as ever, onto the fountain and trades his life for the win. London go 1-0 in this series.
I mean, we wanted no indecision from them. We wanted that decisiveness. We wanted to see that they were more coherent coming out of that group stage, and we got it. We absolutely got it. I know that we were talking to a couple of players coming out from just before the games they played, saying, yeah, we're not too confident in our prep, haven't managed to get any prep done. So coming into it pretty fresh to that group stage. Well, they've had a couple of games together in that first round robin. They've had another game here, and they're looking stronger and stronger each game.
Yeah, they've had a bit of prep, and it is showing so strong right now. They're looking very dangerous, as we said before, and I think I'm very worried for Demise, honestly, because now the early game, even when Demise got a little bit of an early lead that was potentially something that could destabilize London if they didn't have that, it didn't seem to matter. London were like, okay, we don't have the power. We're not just going to throw it on team fights. We're going to give up this dragon. We'll take this tower here. We'll get this push here. We'll find this jungle play here. It was very calculated from London, honestly.
It was, but whereas you look at Admowodo, and, he was very much, the Pokemon trainer in this game. He locked eyes with someone and said, Lapras, use Hyper Beam. Hope you're ready for it, Phil.
Yeah.
He's not ready for it, Paul. He had a thing ready for me, and suddenly he wasn't.
Wow.
There you go. Cool. See, so the problem is, this was more like a solar beam where it has to take like a turn to charge first. That wasn't Admowodo, who was just there putting out the 150 power moves on a 6-second cooldown on that Q. And really, Smee was not really able to get to be that front line they needed in this game. In fact, it never really came into a front to back. It was very skirmish heavy, evolving into more players getting dragged into it.
Yeah, absolutely. London, like, we're not good at team fighting, so let's just not team fight, Forehead. We'll just do everything else, and we'll do it really damn well. And it showed up for them here. So game 1 taken by London, looking very strong right here. Demise, they need to find a different answer, because they're now 0-2 against this team across the tournament. They need to find an answer now, and after a short break, we'll see if they can. Don't go anywhere. And we are back here for game 2 of London versus Demise here in the semi-finals of the Student Proving Grounds. And now, Nymira, there was a lot to think about coming away from that game 1. London now 2-0 up over Demise. What do Demise need to do? What's the answer that they can't seem to crack this riddle?
What is the answer? Well, I think they solved a bit of their laning woes. The very early game went well for them. They managed to hold the Camille down, or at least even. Smee did well in the early lane. There was no real CS discrepancy from the Zoe versus the Sylas. And coming into the second Dragon, actually, that Zoe did a good job of staving off London. And the bot lane also managed to get ahead and poke, push into tower, roam up for an early 2 kills onto the mid jungle. But there really wasn't anything past the early game in terms of the proactive trigger pulling that this team could do. They were looking for the bubbles, looking for the last embraces. They didn't really land any of them at the right moments, and they struggled to find those really big engages they needed to really seal out a game.
Yeah. And London were happy to take the opportunity, playing clean and calculated and getting themselves that win. But I think a large part of that win was their champions were very strong from what we see. Crisis back on the Lilia, Admodo looking devastating on the Camille, Gregors and Nibble bringing back the Varus Bard. Is there something that, particularly out of these picks, that you want Demise to take away, or is it just about finding a better answer to them?
That's the million-dollar question, because I think that when you're looking at the bot lane, a lot of those picks are shared. I don't really know if you can get yourself, well, that much of an advantage between these two AD carries, at least. I think that Teen and Gregors play pretty much everything. I'm sure they have answers to each other. And yes, the Ezreal and Senna did fine against that bot CB2. Yeah. Maybe you ban away some of the larger playmaking picks like the Camille and like the Bard, which have that very long follow-up range. If you are trying to play that keep away style, I think that was the stylistic difference which they struggled with. They wanted to keep them at range, but then gave other picks which could have backline access. It really depends what they've got in mind for their own composition, because that narrows down the champions which they really want to remove. Maybe it is the Camille.
Sure. And speaking of their own composition, Demise, they have opted for the blue side in this game. So they are in control of that first power pick. Last time, they felt the need to get rid of the Tristana. They were able to pick up the Hecarim, but there are so many other picks they're looking to go towards here. What are you maybe expecting for Demise? What do you think they need to prioritize straight off the bat?
Well, they're certainly going to ban Trist. All 4 of the bot lane mid players can play that champion. You just don't give it over. It's too powerful. It's too many matchups and has that flexibility as well. It is actually going to be Nibble's Bard being taken away. We did, again, just have a bit of a chat about, well, okay, if you want to play keep away, if you want to play scale into team fights, maybe you take away some of that longer range playmaking. The Bard is one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can see Karamon's Kane still being taken off the table. That is a long-standing pick of this player and not to be underestimated at all. The Hecarim did fine, but didn't find too much impact. And we were talking in the break about the fact that maybe Demise's comp, it was quite a keep-away comp. They didn't really have that much engage. And Karamon, seems like they just weren't able to find an opportunity to make anything happen there, when it was more often Killy stealing the ultimate and doing the aggressive Onslaught Shadows.
That's the real sad thing about playing against Sylas. Sometimes he just uses your ult better than you do, given the compositions and the scalings on their ultimate too. So the Rumble's being banned away by Demise again. Maybe this will leave open something like a Diana, though. They could first pick that. It is a flex between mid and jungle. Depends if London want to ban that themselves, because again, if Demise banned that on red side, they have a feeling that London at least play it between their mid and jungle, because that's the roles it is flex between. Xerath being banned away from Sam J instead. He did play that the one time. He's been saying the champion is rather strong. Speaking of the Diana, that is the first pick, as it was unbanned this game.
It's interesting that Demise, they were the ones to take away the Tristana, and they're evidently happy to play without the option of that power pick. The Xerath obviously taken away, but the Diana being the first pick here, Karamon has a fair amount of Diana in the recent history. He's been putting in the work on this pick.
If you play jungle.
And I don't doubt that Sam J has turned his hand to it a couple times as well.
Yeah, so the thing about Diana is that she has one of the faster clears in the game right now, with her attack speed and her passive being so good at cycling through the AoE camps like your Krugs and your Raptors. So it's very good in the jungle for that perspective, but then if you have a buff towards jungle, most of the time it ends up buffing your lane too. And in this case, Sam J, I'm sure, will be happy to flex that down into the mid lane if there were to be a blind pick mid laner locked in for London. Instead, it's going to be the Varus instead. We saw how well that worked out for Gregors last time. It was stable, didn't even against the double long range poke lane at the Ezreal Senna, wasn't denied any CS, still managed to keep up in lane priority, and we saw how much damage those arrows did late game. Well, as late as the game got.
Yeah. by the end of the game, I guess we can say. But London, they have got themselves two very strong picks here. The Udyr, the Classic, coming out for Crisis, and Gregor's Varus, as you say. It's going to be matched, though, by the Samira for Lamborghini and the Rel. So we have seen a couple of Rels so far. Easy game GG from Barrage's Rel has been absolutely devastating. And now Yanako on some tank engage this time. No more range for the support.
And we looked at the champion pool of Yanako, of course, as we did with everyone, and we said, okay, all right, so there's definitely a lot of enchants, there's a lot of lane dominance, and of course, against, we paired up alongside someone like Team Lamborghini. That's something you can play towards. Just play towards hyper carry, enchanter bullying around the 2v2. But there was a bit of a lack of tank engage, which has been so prominent in the meta for this last season, at least in terms of what's been played recently on the solo queue. Going back to the Rel, though, heavy playmaking champ, even though you are dealing less damage than something like Azilian or whatever else you want to pick up, is versus the Alistar, though. Very common matchup between supports in this season.
Yeah, and this is Nibbles Alistar. I've been led to believe that Nibbles Alistar is a
Get
bit
those
of
riddles
a thing.
ready. Get those nibble riddles ready. I want to hear the poems in chat. It's genuinely a game-winning pick. In fact, there was a couple of games where Nibble was playing in University in this last split where he was the difference maker. He was the guy getting the 3-4-man headbutt pulves and everything come mid-game and just straight up winning fights for his team.
Yeah, absolutely, and let's see if they can have that impact today as we're into this second round of bans here, and I'm liking the bans so far. The Camille for Admodo has been taken away. I think that's the right choice, and the Orianna taken away by London, along with the Shen, interestingly, from Smee. So they do, worry about that pick significantly enough, especially, combo with the Diana, with the Samira, giving them the extra dive potential. I can see it.
So the question is, do you want to blind pick your mid or your top? Top, I suppose you could just go for the Gnar and say, Smee, you're probably not going to... well, you lost against this matchup before, maybe that would happen again. It's going to be the Victor for Killy, though, which opens up something like that Yone. And interesting, again, I was talking to Sam J the other day and said, alright, okay, this is Arath pick, what's up with it? He's saying, okay, it's great into all the mages. Killy might be a bit of an issue, though, because he does play the Yone. Well, the shoe is on the other foot. It's not meant to be on your other foot. It's meant to be on the other one. And it's going to be the Yone into the mage and the Victor.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam J stepping away from the mages here. It goes into the Yone, and that's even more dive wombo potential. All four of the previous members have been itemizing into that kind of style. So if we wanted to see decision out of Demise, this is a team comp that needs it. If you're not going to be decisive, their team comp's not going to do anything. But if they are, they can absolutely blow you sky high if they get you together.
They can. So the Yuumi is actually the Malphite. That is one proxy pick coming through.
Wow.
So that does mean, of course, you have a very large amounts of wombo coming through.
Oh, yeah.
If you're locking a Wukong into the Malphite, I would question your choices there. Instead, it's going to be the Renekton for Admodo, another pick which he's had a fair amount of success on. I believe actually when I was casting him in the Benelux Open Tour, pulled that up against a Malphite. Actually, I think there was a game where he played that, and he was just, again, very strong in the early lane, as he has been in this tournament too, looking to make an impact on this early game champion, try and blow open that top lane a bit.
Yeah, for sure. And, the Renekton was banned in game one, left up this time, and easily picked into that matchup. This is Admodo's most played in solo queue. It's his best win rate. He's got the most games on it. This is ultimate comfort, I think, for Admodo. This is the Yanako Senna of Admodo in the top lane right here. So I think that maybe they just identified in game one, like, Admodo dominated that top lane in what could have been a tough matchup and was a really big factor of us winning. So let's just invest more in Admodo's stock. Let's give him the last pick. Let's give him a carry. Let's give him someone he can dominate all stages of the game on.
So that's obviously going to be a factor, and the fact that if you have that empowered W, the Malphite passive shield means nothing, because it does break shields and allows you to take some very hard trades. Also one of the reasons why Renekton's not too bad into something like a Scion either. He puts up that Soul Furnace shield, and Renekton takes it right back down again. Thing is, though, you do still have that Malphite, you have the Diana, the multiple forms of engage of the AoE variety from Demise will make Killy feel a lot more vulnerable in this game than he was on the Assassin, and also you're throwing a Yone alongside that. London look at this saying, hang on, that's not a poke comp anymore, that's a bit of wombo. Not sure I like that so much.
Yeah. That's a little bit of a different beast, completely opposite beast, if anything.
That's no moon.
Demise. That's exactly.
It's a Malphite.
So now that we've seen that London have developed a style that they know how to play and they can execute cleanly so far in this tournament, now they have to be able to pivot on a dime and play against a completely different subject here in game two. This is going to show a little bit more of how well this team can play together as a unit, if they can play these different opponents and still, keep the same quality up.
So I'm going to have to apologize. I know you said some very valuable stuff there, but I just cannot stop thinking about how I said there is no moon. That's no moon, and there's a Diana in the game. It's literally Diana. It's sitting there. Turns out it is a moon. It is a battle station as well, though. You've got a rock moon thing.
A moon.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. What are the odds?
It's incredible. So Demise, they have themselves their veritable, not Death Star, it is actually a moon, and London looking to get out of its orbital path.
Yeah, absolutely, and they do still have the immobile carries of Varus. Killy does have speed up, but there's no dashes, there's no blinks. So if they get caught out, they're getting caught out hard. So they're gonna have to be able to stay safe on this comp. But that's Nibble's job potentially. That's maybe Crysis's job, and Apoordo can be doing distraction duty, I imagine, whilst this is going on.
So, I mean, if Renekton gets right onto the Samira has that blade wall, the spin wall, as I like to call it, but that doesn't block the Empowered W, that doesn't stop you getting burst out. You can absolutely get shut down by a good Renekton flank. Problem is, if the Samira is left untouched, you have the ability to get extra passive stacks, of course, from the knock-up auto, that extra thing which allows you to dash into range and keep them juggled for a little longer, a la your fighting games and stuff. And all 4 members of the Demise squad outside of that Samira have either 1 or more knockups. You have 2 from the Yone within that Q and the ult, the Malphite ult, Diana ult, Rel has that W, and of course that R keeps them locked in place too. Samira is going to get up to the ultimate really quickly in this comp. It's going to get them pinned in place. So for me, Admiwodo is probably the key member to watch. He needs to be the person immediately shutting down someone on this Renekton and tearing apart one of these powerful members of the Demise team comp.
Yeah, I think they are going to have to invest into this Renekton if they want to see success here, because, Greg, as we saw in last game, had a little bit of a quiet one in lane. It was Lamborghini and Yunako taking control of that. This is a very different duo for Yunako and Lamborghini. I'd be interested to see if they can still win the lane without the poke advantage. Now they have to find a good 2v2 if they want to win that. It's a very different beast, and against Varus and Alistar, that's a real tough combo to find that win on, honestly.
But the thing is that Alistar Rel just nullify each other so much. If you go in for a W on Rel, you're going to get headbutt or pulled out of it. If you go in for a headbutt pull from Alistar, actually the attract repel, if you time that correctly on the stun, you get stunned before you can go through to your pulverize, your combo gets cancelled. Both these champions very good at nullifying the other, which means that the AD carries positioned correctly, and both of these, again, as we've been saying, have been the best AD carries in this tournament by quite a long way. I mean, I think they have outclassed the other 2 teams in this case, but there's no shame in that. They are incredibly talented players, so I'm not expecting this to be kill lanes on bot side. Again, the question is at this point, alright, Demise have themselves a hyper team fight comp, and this time they have it with stronger lanes, I would say, too. This, again, fits the narrative from the very first game that we saw between these teams, where Demise tried to put London on a timer and says, you gotta shut us out early before we come online and win this game, and London said, alright, we will do that. Now they've done that twice.
Yeah, pretty much. So we did see the adaptation of Demise in that first game, drop in a lot of early vision to avoid themselves getting caught out in those sticky situations and falling behind, rotating aggressively, using their priority to gain advantages. So if they can do that again, they are going to be set up very, very well. Whereas last time when it came to the objectives, they weren't able to execute on the poke comp, really. They weren't there in time. They weren't landing the skill shots they needed to land. They weren't able to find that value. But now it's a simpler job this time. You just rock up, and there's not like, oh, we need to land this bubble, or we can't really approach this brush. Now, if we all approach this brush and we find anyone, we're going to press all of our buttons, and they're going to die. So
I love it when it's that easy.
Yeah, exactly. I think that Demise have made a good decision here to simplify the win condition while still giving themselves the capability to have a strong early, which is so important for them, I think.
Exactly, and I mean, you still have some mechanically high skill cap champions for your mechanically very impressive players. Samjo on the Yone, he has been a very good mid laner within the UK scene, the university scene, right? I mean, like, he was the champion of winter in both those splits of both those tournaments, rather, of the NEC and Newell. This split was third in Newell. I think they ended up third place in NEC as well, losing both times to Cabbage Family, so Greg is looking to send them to another losers final. But I mean, you look on the other side of that, actually Samjay is looking to send Gregors to one of his teammates' fate as well, because of course Resolve's Porp will be in that fourth match as well.
Yeah, a lot of these power players kind of stacking up to each other in this different scenario where they don't have their well-formed teams behind them. Or maybe you could argue that everyone, since they've all been pulled in at this very high level. A lot of uni teams have these very strong high-level teams, but sometimes there's a Diamond 4 player on there, you know, especially teams like Roehampton, I think, really stood out like that to me, where Jojo and Necro, these really strong, flashy, really powerful players, but the rest of them there's definitely stars on that team and supporting members. Whereas here, everyone has been picked because they are all stars of the collegiate scene from the NSE and the NUL. Everybody can be the star player, and learning to operate in that scenario, I think, is potentially new for some of these players, and at the very least, it's very useful for them to practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry if I seem distracted there. I've just had a phone call, which I can only assume was due to my bad puns on various moon-related things. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So FBI open up, or open bot, I suppose. That's the phrase over in the NA scene. But I think you're absolutely right in terms of a lot of these players will have come from very successful teams in the NUL sphere, in the NSE sphere, within other tournaments too, or whatever, right? And they'll be used to playing around strong teams. We also have players in here who have not really been on strong university teams because maybe their university just doesn't have the higher ranked players, right? I mean, the university esports masters on right now. We see similar teams qualifying for some of these regions. Where I mean, one of our UKEL players in blank is on the Irish team, and the rest of the team we're definitely waiting on Blank to carry. He was the star player there. Whereas you go into these teams, actually the level of talent is high across the board. Anyone can slot into those different roles, and maybe some players are more confident playing others. I think particularly this Demise roster are more likely to play towards their bot side and their bot lane carry. You got an exhaust on that Samira, you're ready to carry. Maybe that's the play of the game.
Yeah, this is not double TP down here, no. This is double tank engage and combat summoners for the bot lane. I'm expecting a different story, and I cannot wait to see it written before my eyes. Demise and London kicking off this second game here in the semi-finals. Let's see if Demise can stop the bleeding, find the answer to London.
Maybe that story will be written in great all-caps yellow text floating through the stars. Maybe that's where the story will be written.
Scrolling slowly.
You know, it didn't originally come from Star Wars. It was from a different series, which I can't remember the name of now, but they completely nicked it off someone else.
Oh, no. Plagiarism at the highest level.
They call it inspiration.
Tip them off.
Just scroll down a little further, it'll start getting further away from you. But we do see the level 1 start coming out from both these teams, fanning out, both junglers recalling, switching to sweepers and going back. No level 1 shenanigans, not going to be that bush control from the bot lane either, probably again, because you're not looking at that very strong level 1 from both of these 2v2s in terms of the Bard poke and the Senna poke and stuff like that. A bit darker on that, but the jungle starts, okay, slightly less tracked as well.
Yeah, I am very interested to see how Keramon does on this Diana, honestly, because I've not seen a Diana jungle yet. I've not got to cast over one yet since the changes, and as you said before, the clear speed is very fast. It is up against the Nudir, who has a similar power, but you know, I want to see what this Diana can do at these early and mid, like, laning stages of the game.
Yeah, so what Diana can do is, well, leash both of them at once and use the Q to the Crescent Strike to get between the blue and the Grom. The thing is, effectively, when you get yourself something like a recurve bow going into a Nash's Tooth, you clear faster than any jungler in the game, I'd actually say, particularly towards those AoE camps. Just cycle through your passive again and again with this increased damage towards jungle camps. As you can see, going towards that third camp already, slightly ahead of the Udyr, gonna be out on the map earlier.
This isn't the top lane.
Wait,
this is the mid lane. I mean, the matchup is the same, but now Killy is in a long lane on Victor, which potentially could be punishing against the Yone.
And Killy's taking the teleport, and Moda goes, I need a bit more fire in my belly. Gonna take the ignite, and just go straight to the Malphite. Yeah, a lot of damage.
That is a lot of damage, and he's got the PTA. This is okay. This has changed the dynamic a little bit somewhat. So if we're looking at potential mid-jungle combinations here, now you've got Udyr, Renekton able to roam even harder, but you've also got Malphite ultimate in the mid lane. If that goes bot lane as easy as it can now, that could be devastating.
Sure you want to be there, buddy?
Is about to maybe try and put a stop to Admiral Order. There's the second charge reset coming through, but can Crisis save them? Yes, they can, and they will escape. Crisis, does he want more though? The Ghost has been popped. Crescent Strike doesn't land onto either now. The Flash has come through, and the Ignite is down. It's first blood for Crisis, and Admiral slips away. Not even close. It's a double kill for Udyr. London taking the early lead.
Ooh, that's a butt clencher. Admiral didn't actually get the empowered Q for the extra heal there. Thought that might be the difference maker. Didn't end up being that. Gets the triumph through. You're right to highlight that press the attack coming out from Renekton. It's not the Conqueror. I think this was meant to be in the Yone. Renekton is actually one of the few 1v1 Yone checks. Yone really doesn't like that matchup. Actually, go watch some of Cloud9's matches where I think it was Impact Renekton absolutely styling on perks over in the NA scene. Either way, Admiralty uses the early pressure to draw the attention, the Eye of Sauron from the Diana. Maybe not the best of situations at the start of it, but Crisis does pop the Ghost, gets out of the play, and takes the 2v2.
Yeah, and all these flashes and ghosts burnt for Demise, and they get nothing out of it. They're already down 1.2k now, and Crisis now looking to flex that control, gets onto that top side of the river. Mid lane has been pretty quiet, but or top lane I should say, has been pretty quiet, but mid lane exploding already. I wanted them to invest in Admiralty. They put him in the middle, they're ganking him already. This is the dream.
Yeah. Well, Admiralty very quickly becoming the Caesar archetype and crossing the Rubicon, i.e. the river right in the middle of things, and Caramon didn't best like that. It was so close though. You could see the back steps, the very tight timing on trying to move in and out of auto attack range does go to Admiralty though on his most played champion. The lane swap shenanigans work out in favor of London so far. Got to see how it works out for that Victor and Yone in terms of their CS leads though, but as you said, not really that much action as you were saying.
Yeah, Crisis went straight into the plated toe caps right there at the 4-minute mark. Has the boots. Admiralty now looking to keep the pressure on with this dive, but Caramon is here. This could get a little dicey. I know if Admiralty wants to take this one, but look at the damage. The stun is huge. It is so close for Samjay. Caramon dashes in looking for revenge onto this Lizard Wizard, but can he find the kill? He can't. Admiralty again. How does he keep getting away with it?
He can't keep getting away with it. Narrator, he could. He just could. Doesn't even need to land a Q for the extra healing after that point. Samjay manages to time the W pretty perfectly there. I'm fairly sure he didn't have that W shield cancelled by Renekton's W. Now he gets to go forward, lands the knockup. Dead Victor looks like.
Yeah, Victor not in the best of places here. Samjay running it down to the wire, but finally, Caramon able to get a kill off these gangs.
Gets to get a bit of revenge for those earlier plays which haven't quite gone the way of the Diana. It is at the cost, though, because it was a lot of time spent of Udyr farming, taking Dragon, and getting themselves ahead in the individual matchup.
Yes, they are going to accrue something for themselves and holding on to that slightly over 1k gold lead for London right now. We are panning over the bot lane here, which we have seen neither hide nor hair of this game so far. There was no level 2 shenanigans, no combos from the tank engage. These teams are playing it pretty carefully down here.
I think that's kind of testament for me about how London's team, with, as we were saying, kind of the very strong individual members, maybe we thought the strongest even in this tournament, being able to play versatile. They're able to play towards different sides of the map. On the other side, Lamborghini, Yanako, not necessarily having the most lane-dominant duo in this year. They do have kill pressure, but you're not expecting them to explode at all times. Looking more for those mid to late game fights where you do get those, the Inferno triggers. It's like, yeah, featuring Samira from Devil May Cry. Looking for that kind of area of the game towards the mid and late game. So the lane down there, I suppose it has just been quiet for now with a nullifying support matchup.
Yeah, and Admiralty once again into this top side here, taking a lot of control, dropping the vision to keep an eye on things as Crisis is going for to invade themselves. London not letting the pressure up with this very powerful mid-jungle duo that they've sort of arranged for themselves. Now, Smee pushing Admiralty back. Samjay has the ultimate. This could develop into a bit of a skirmish right now if they want to go for this. Samjay taking some damage. Admiralty has that Fury built up, but it's a 3 versus 2. And there's the combo onto the Victor. They do have the flash, but there is no point dropping that one, my friend. Caramon finds another.
Do not go into... Well, the night is dark and full of terrors, or in this case, you have Malphite and Yone, who completely shut down the Victor, does not manage to flash out, did have it available. A little too close range, though, to get out of the Malphite ultimate, and goes down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yanako just holding that mid wave and Smee back to farming. So Demise now fighting back, finding an aggressive player themselves, and it is more money onto the Caramon. And so both junglers here, Crisis and Caramon, have been invested in, and I want to see who's going to come out on top. I wanted to see Diana, and with Caramon this strong, I think this is going to give me what I wanted.
I think it absolutely is. Going towards the Night Harvester first with the triangle built up, which... Hexag Alternator, that's one. I remember the old Revolver. Can't quite remember that one all the time. But once you do get up to that Night Harvester, your team fight damage is absurd. So we're looking forward to that big wombo combo. And,
speaking of absurd, Samjay disappears off the face of the earth.
So about that lane matchup and Renekton being good into
Yeah.
Yone, sit on the screen. Demise tried to avoid this for the longest time possible. As soon as it happens, though, Admodo strikes, he pounces, he takes down Yasuo's brother.
Yeah, that looked pretty easy for Admodo. Did drop both summoners and the ultimate for it, so not going to have them for a little while, but is going to be perfectly happy taking that money to the bank as Smee can only farm up the wave. And now we have what we expected from the start of the game. We've got Yone and Victor in the mid lane, so maybe we can get a bit of normality coming through here, or maybe Samdra's too far behind, who knows?
Maybe we can. I mean, one thing which is going to continue, regardless of the assignment of these 4 laners, is there is no teleport on the Renekton. Very bursty with the Prestige attack and the Ignite, which again, really important into that Samira, because she can't really get away from the Renekton. That W stops dashes, even if you try and Wild Rush and kite through that. If that comes out at the right time, Samira just gets shut down. You can't avoid the Ignite, you can't avoid the auto attacks. Admodo, with this build, might have less side lane pressure, but does have that assassination dive threat onto the Samira.
Absolutely. We'll see if they can bring that one to bear, as they are now still just taking the recall. I'm sure they've got plenty of money to spend, plenty of item to buy right here. As Caravan's actually attempting a little gank in the mid lane here, and they've got Killy away from the tower. Forced the flash, but a fair old chunk of damage being fired back by Victor. And look who's come out of the woodwork. It's Crisis with the Ghost Pop. Who's he going to go for? Is it going to be Caramon? Smites them down, but cannot quite find the stun.
Doesn't quite close the distance. Bear stance pops. Admodo keeps doing that thing where he 1v1s people. Smee taking the worst end of that trade.
Yeah, absolutely, but Smee with the toe caps of his own and the potion there, keeping them topped off, should mean that they, I think, can stay safe while the summoners of Admodo are down. At least Smee getting stunned up, though, and out comes that blade. It's very dicey now. You've got TP, man. I think you've just got to drop it. Maybe Caramon can find the punish, though.
Maybe. Well, instructions unclear. Potion out of charges. Admodo fully stacked up on Rage. They're going for the play!
Oh, go straight through it. The Crescent Strike doesn't land, I don't think, but the Moonfall is still there. So much damage being fired. Next, there's the 1. Can he find the 2? The slice and the dice, and the kill is his. Admodo with the 1v2.
I mean, he definitely likes his vegetables sliced and cubed at this point. Gets the double dash through. Renekton's burst is truly horrifying.
This is just absolutely insane, the amount of damage the Renekton's coming through right there. Had the ultimate just back in time, and what great timing it was. Caramon goes in, and not landing the Crescent Strike means he doesn't get the resets. These little margins can just be feeding into Admodo, becoming bigger and bigger.
And this is kind of one of those extra points where you start realizing why every top laner builds Tocap and Bramble Vest, because so many top laners do actually have that kind of turnaround damage. You just have to mitigate it and use your base damages to better effect. Yes, the Malphite now has those two. Ada has Sork Boots and that little triangle thing. And, well, might need yourself a Constellation Toblerone or something else triangular, because that one was not too sweet to swallow.
No, that was a bitter one for sure. Caramon sent back to base, got the 2 kills, but now has a pair of deaths as well, and is struggling to keep the pace going, whereas Crisis, straight on timer onto the next dragon, going to pick that one up for free. Got their 2 kills earlier, has a massive CS lead as well. They're just kind of farming it up, playing a bit of PvE today.
They are, and I mean, you're going to get a chem tank sooner or later coming out from Crisis, and at that point, it is pretty much ready to go. Yeah, you're going to have an extra mountain dragon on top of that too. Makes things even better. Diana is waiting for that first kind of dam-breaking moment where you pop off with the ultimate, you have your Night Halves, or in this case the alternate on the first target, going off, and you turn around a really big AoE team fight. But if you're too far behind at that point, in fact it's not even going to be the chem tank, it's tankier than that, it's going to be the Sunfire Aegis coming out of Crisis, and that's going to make your job even harder to do that.
This honestly reminds me a little of how Demise was dealing with Resolve in their first game, where they had the Xerath and the Varus, and they had, you know, a bit of peel as well, but they had this strong lanes and poke comp that they were executing so well, and the engage from Resolve never got a chance to be brought to bear, and I think Demise are at risk of the same thing happening here. They're very far behind against London, and if they never really get a foot in the game, then London can keep poking them out, keep winning the trades, and just keep the game in their favor forever.
So, Herald Pop mid from London. Again, we talked about last game. It was very important who takes the first mid lane turret when you have longer ranged wave clearing mages. It's not really the case with Yone, but Yone doesn't have a tower to fall back to as he's getting shoved under tower. It's getting very dangerous. Speaking of going under tower, Admodo forcing him to back off.
Stepping up very far forward as all 10 members of Variety of Smee gets onto Killy once again. In comes Rel, gets the Magnet Storm, but melts again. The health bars of everybody are melting down here, and London kite back the aggression. All of a sudden, it's an ace. London don't even lose a player.
How does that happen? I'd love to see that team fight again. I'm definitely going to have to go check back this game back to that one, because Yanako immediately pops. It's a one-man ultimate from Smee. It's onto an important target. It doesn't catch Admiroto, who again is that one person who can shut down Samira, well, second to none almost within the metagame right now. None of that damage is avoidable. And Gregors, speaking of avoiding damage, doesn't really get touched in the entirety of that. Lamborghini, yes, does get the ultimate going through, but it's immediately cancelled, immediately stopped from going in the spin-off, and gets taken down very quickly. It's a full ace. It's a tower. It's a huge turnaround for London.
Yeah, absolutely massive for London right here. They already had the lead, but it just doubled in size like that. They are so far ahead here, and they haven't even really hit the mid game. This is the 14-minute mark. London are looking stronger and stronger. As we said before, every single game, this is looking like no different.
No, it is not. And one of the big things from that fight is, yes, Admiroto gets more kill participation, gets more assists, gets more kills. But the really big winner from this is going to be Gregors, who gets the extra gold injection. We know what happens when you get that Muramana coming through into that mid-game. You hit about 20 minutes when that starts to build up. This Varus can start shoving away the likes of your Yone, your Samira, your Diana off of objectives if there are no waves to start hitting and regenning off. And that can just win you those dragons for free. It's going to be an Ocean Dragon too. It's definitely a prize worth fighting for.
Yeah, absolutely. A very powerful Rift for London. They can keep control of this game. Admiroto back to the usual, pushing in that top wave. And now they've put the Varus into the mid lane. They've swapped Killy down bot. Killy has the TP. They can rotate to these plays, and Varus's range does keep him nice and safe in mid.
They do, and I mean, yes, it's a bit different if there's a Malphite ult available and there's a flash on Diana when you can go in for that Moonfall. Yanako is coming up with the Magnet Storm off of cooldown now at this point too. So Demise had the tools maybe to fight. They don't have the vision control to make the approach to get it.
Yeah, so much control for London still right now. We really haven't seen much out of the Yanako Rel so far. Even Nibbles Alistar hasn't really been too much of a factor at this stage, as the fact that the mid lane or bot lane was so quiet. I want to see what happens now, as we saw Yanako get what could have been a massive Magnet Storm if they hadn't died half a second after pressing W. So the options are still there. You can see how the comp's meant to work, but London just kind of evaporated the threat before it got a chance to materialize.
It still surprises me how quickly that round just got deleted.
Yeah.
And part of it is also, you know, like, the AoE damage coming out from the likes of Eurydice, Phoenix Stance, and Renekton, who were still in the fight, do add significant damage to it. But if you have, I don't know, an empowered arrow going through, then of course Gregors, even just on the one-item spike, has enough damage to really be a damage threat before you even do get that Muramana upgraded.
Oh, they finally found a dive though. Demise get a play for themselves, catching out Killy. I guess not really catching out as their three-man diving him under his turret, but maybe London want to have an answer to this Nibble. Stepping up pretty aggressively, with the man disadvantage, perhaps not worth it.
So with the Dragon coming up, and 20 seconds till kill is available, maybe London will just choose to err on the side of caution, wait for the teleport to come in and take the fight. And Caramon doesn't have the ult now. You do have Smee with his ult. He doesn't have Flash though, and he's been seen on Vision.
Yep, this is going to be a 4v5. Admiroto out of the brush, has to build that Fury up. Dragon's already gone down. London can just try and disengage this if they wish, and Demise are going to let them do it. They don't even need to commit the TP from Victor.
I think that's wise from, well, both teams at that point. It's wise we're looking to see, okay, if we can take ourselves a bit of a fight on the back end of this, particularly since Nibble used that, used the ultimate pretty early, used the Q pretty early. But they just say, alright, I can get away with this one. We've got ourselves a pick beforehand, we'll count ourselves lucky, and we are still an 8,000, well, 9,000 deficit, actually, looking at it, with those decimal points coming through. Whereas London, maybe they could have forced a bit harder without the Flash and Renekton, knowing that Samira is strong, still has the Mythic, and can turn things around. Decide to fight another day still.
Yeah, and I mean, the next time they potentially fight around this dragon, that's going to be the Ocean Soul point for London. It's going to be critical for Demise to keep control of this objective from now on. But as you said, 9k behind, they don't really have control of anything right now, least of all their own jungle, as Crisis is going to get on top of Caramon with Nibble coming around the corner to follow up the CC chain. Do they even need it, though? Crisis just wailing on them. The flash committed by Nibble will be enough, but mid lane, Demise answer back with the shutdown on Gregors.
It was, but it's a double teleport for it. They're still losing something top lane. This is kind of what you're forced into, though, when you are this far behind. If you have, you know, an even top lane, or one where you've only given up just the one kill to Renekton with Ignite, that's a little different. We talked about, we had that chat saying, yeah, okay, Renekton without teleport, not able to get those flanks as easily, not able to play the side lanes as easily, because he just can't be as ever-present without that global. Doesn't matter, though, they're still taking down turrets. You only get the one kill for your 2 teleports. You've given over that global advantage now. London, still not unhappy with that trade.
Oh, and Abawodo found his way into a brush, pops the ultimate, but they check it with the ward, and he doesn't want to take the 1v3 just yet. He's powerful, yes, but I don't know if he's that powerful.
He's very angry too. He just says, "Ah, they're coming into the jungle. I will leave." And actually, he's just gonna walk out.
Potentially not walk out and stick around and get ulted for his trouble. The Moonfall and that Bait Unsealed have come through, but he steps away. No, the shutdown finally. Garamon will get the punish he's been searching for all game, but another punish is coming straight back into their face, and Killy's the one to pick it up. Yanako flashes with no HP. Crisis diving in, but the headbutt saves them, I think. Nibble with a rare miss there, but Gregor's firing over the wall. Samjay down to a sliver. Yanako as well. You've got to try and get them away here. Can't they find it? Here's the arrows again. Gregors with the cooldown picks up the kill and snipes with the arrow. You just can't escape this man. He don't miss.
He's made the trench run against that battle station. He just zeroes that Womp Rat with a bullseye. Gets the hail of arrows for one, the arrow for the other one. Crisis, diving Lamborghini.
Oh, forces the shield out of the Samir, but will not find the kill today. Just gonna walk away. Message has been sent.
Message sent, message received. London do get themselves a one-team fight. Abawodo does die for the first time, and yeah, okay, maybe a little too greedy going for those Raptors towards the end of it, but isn't too displeased with the end result for their team. Sat at now over a 10,000 gold lead, edging on, in fact, well, I don't know, 11. I can do numbers, that's easy. But London in a prime position now to take themselves a Baron bait or a Baron fight, and then start closing out this game.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see the control coming through them here. Crisis still controlling the bot wave, now taken for a recall, and they could go for the Baron, as you say. But Demise, if they do find themselves a way into this Baron pit, perhaps they can find the perfect fight. Perhaps they can find the absolute God engage and get the kills they need, because they've got to start clawing away at this 12k deficit before long.
Yeah, they do, but I mean, before that comes in, eventually you're going to start coming into contact with this Varus, who doesn't even have the Muramana yet, hasn't even got to a third item. If they hit something like a Cyrilda's Grudge to start tearing through the likes of the Malphite too, Gregors, if he wants to take a slow fight and can escape the initial engage, is going to be a huge threat outside of, as we were saying, the early game powerhouse of this Renekton.
Gregors has been quietly accruing the money, and that last fight we saw it really come in strong with those snipes under the tower. London clearing out the vision around this dragon, taking it nice and methodical here, well in time, and are once again the benefactors of the control very, very early now. Nibble and Abawodo.
We're going to see a brush ultimate again from Abawodo. How angry is he going to be that people have walked at him?
He seems to be managing the anger a little better so far, but maybe they're
going
to take
angry.
This fight. Here comes the anger right through stun onto Yanako, deep into the backside, goes to Renekton, and the knockups are just massive from Nibble. Look at the AoE again. It's complete destruction for London. A quick triple for Gregors, the ace for London Esports, the student team coming up huge today. They've got the wave in mid. I think this might be it.
Well, fear leads to anger. Anger, well, I mean, that's a Renekton ultimate, isn't it? It leads to hate, and it leads to a one-team fight. Severa had no way to outplay that. London taking a quick, easy, dominant 2-0.
Absolutely. The team that we were worried about struggling looks like they have not a care in the world today. Demise handed their own namesake as the London squad will knock down the towers with the Nexus to follow. What a great performance from them, honestly, today. If I'm Barrage, I am sweating right now.
So am I. They will be meeting them in the finals. We saw that Crisis built up a Lich Bane, and might have been a Bane of Liches in this one. Bane of Reapers, perhaps, because Demise do fall by his hand. Crisis, really good series as well. I know in that second game, didn't talk as much about that Udyr. First game, though, did do very well on that Lilia, and controlled this matchup again in this jungle in that second game too. Just put that Diana down time and time again.
Yeah, it was domination, honestly. They were always accruing values, whether it's whether it's dragons, whether it's farm. You know, if they don't have to always be trying to make something happen. I feel like Keramon was trying very hard to get the ganks off and always just maybe not quite making it by a sliver. You know, half of them maybe worked out, but so many times they're just falling further behind Crisis if they can't find the optimum value. And that lane swap as well just completely threw their ideas on their head, I think.
I think it did. I mean, I think the lane swap ended up being the matchup that Demise wanted. I do think they wanted to avoid the Yone Renekton matchup. I don't think that's good for Yone. And again, we saw as soon as that came into contact, the Yone just died. But it didn't matter. I mean, the Renekton was killing everyone. Admordo had the Gnar banned away from them in the game one. I think they had it banned away from them. Actually, it might not have been banned in the second one. But this has been a pick which Admordo has not necessarily been going to in the competitive setting in this Proving Ground so far. But it's showing that, yeah, you want lane domination. He's got it for you in spades.
Yeah. Absolutely. He has so much to bring to the table here. And I remember in the second game, there was a part early on where you wanted to see a quick fight.
Yes.
We are actually getting that prepared, so we'll be able to go over that in a brief second. But before we do that, we'll give Phil a little bit of time to set it up. Let's talk a little bit about an MVP for the series, because, I mean, I think you know who my guess is, because I am incredibly biased to a certain top laner in this game. But what's your thoughts? Who do you think's really shone today?
I think it was an ensemble effort. I think that in the first game, I think it wasn't just the lane pressure which was exerted by all lanes, or rather the survival even of some of those lanes, where we thought actually bot lane could have gone much worse for Gregor's Nibble in that first game, and they managed to keep even. But then on the other side of it, where they did have winning matchups, particularly Admordo, just put them to the sword. He just had a good lane matchup, snowballed off, got individual leads, and used that not just to push lane, but to get start getting incursions into the jungle, getting teamfight entries, getting flanks, getting huge amounts of damage across the board. Admordo, for me, out and out MVP for this series.
Yeah, a carry top laner through and through, and I cannot wait to see him go up against Jojo once again. The last time they played, Jojo was playing Quinn, and they both got a solo kill in that lane, if I recall correctly. It was a bit of a messy one, so I don't think Admordo is going to take that line down. I think he's going to come into that matchup looking for some revenge very quickly.
That is. So, as far as I'm aware, we do have, it was around the mid-first tower, you're right, Phil. If you do have that ready, I'd love to go over that replay, because of all the fights in the series, this is the one which I just didn't understand what happened. So what we see is, the Herald's been put down, and there are so many ultimates available. Gregor's is in a bit of a unorthodox position for the AD carry in this fight, but the arrow immediately lands, actually does manage to catch Yanako on the back of it, which means Yanako immediately gets W'd by Admordo. So the shield comes out from the crash down, but is immediately broken. Yeah, the Magnet Storm comes through, but it's just not enough. And then you have all of the ultimates coming back in return from Gregor's. You don't have enough CC coming in from Rel. Admordo is already doing enough damage with the Dominus, and the Yone pings out immediately. It just seems like actually the quick fingers and the readiness of this roster was just more than enough to take down this fight. And Yanako gets absolutely exploded, and then the fight goes awfully after that point.
Yeah, and you could see Lamborghini on the side there as well. Gets the ultimate, as you brought up at the time, but just flashes in, but doesn't get the time to heal it up. No one manages to quite finish off Killy, and they take all of the focus, and they just slip away.
Look how quick this actually happens in actuality.
Yeah.
That's why I was so surprised that Yanako went down so quickly. I think the real weird thing for me is that Gregor's comes in on kind of like a flank angle, which is not what you expect the Varus to be, but it just means that the Yone is never going to reach them, didn't have the angle to do so. And yeah, I mean, it was just a complete runaway by the London team. This is what really sealed the advantage in this game.
Yeah, a real big turning point for them right there, and London were happy to capitalize on it. Take themselves the 2-0 right here. So we've had a pair of 2-0s. Looks like the finals are, you know, the deserving winners right there. We have seen these two teams rise to the top, and we will be seeing them face off against each other in the future as well. So let's take a quick look forward to that just for maybe a minute or two. We talked about maybe Jojo versus Admordo, but what else do you think Barrage are going to be able to bring to the table against a powerhouse like London, who are looking so strong across the board?
I mean, so Barrage in their game, which they won against London in that round robin, a lot of it was on Necromancer and Easy Game GG. We saw that Nibble had some big plays, and if you give Easy Game GG a rel, we saw that Yanako couldn't quite pull it off in that fight. That Easy Game GG did in that group stage game in this matchup. So I'm looking really at the support matchup again. probably not going to have so much emphasis on the support counter pick in the draft. It probably will be more power pick towards something like that, Alistair or the Rel, and that does change the dynamic of the draft quite a lot, because if you are then early picking strong picks for support instead of leaving them for a bit later, maybe that leaves something like Jojo, who has said he has ample counter picks and pocket picks ready for this finals. He said he had 3 Gnar counter picks ready. So we've seen one of them in the Quinn. Not sure what the other ones are going to be. Could be absolutely anything, but I'm very much looking forward to that. But if you're picking strong picks for different roles, as opposed to what Demise were trying to do in this draft, could very much change the way that things go.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to see how that plays out. The stream, of course, will be tomorrow, starting from 3 o'clock. We'll have the 3rd and 4th place match first, where Resolve and Demise can fight for a bit of redemption here at the Student Proving Grounds. And once that match is sewn up, we'll move straight on to the finals. So you do not want to miss that. There'll be plenty of action tomorrow for you guys to tune into. I have been Trajan tonight, casting with Nymera. It's been a very exciting cast, honestly, seeing London grow and succeed as they have done. Always enjoy casting with you, Alex. It's been a pleasure.
Always enjoy casting with you.
Absolutely. So everybody, you'll have to come back tomorrow for the conclusion of the Student Proving Grounds. We've seen a lot, but there's plenty more to go. We'll see you here tomorrow, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Do not be late, or we'll come and find you. We'll see you then.